Hey guys, welcome to the Bingezone. On today's video, we're going to be talking about the movie BrightBurn, breaking down the characters, the ending, the plot, to get a better understanding of just what happened and what this movie is about. So without further ado, let's just jump into the movie. Now, this movie is very interesting because it takes a different approach at the superhero genre. Because for time and time again, we know how Superman comes to Earth. He's raised by good parents. He ends up a good guy. But what if Superman came to Earth and he doesn't become a good guy? What if he becomes a villain? I know if you're a longtime comic book fan like me, you've seen different Elseworld stories about Superman, but this is the first actual movie that takes a look at the comic book trope and twists it on its head. Now, what this movie does is we're introduced to the character of Brandon Breyer. Now, I know what you're thinking: Brandon Breyer, Peter Parker, Scott Summers, Wally West, all those comic book epitomes, but that's because this movie is a spin at or a take at the comic book genre. Now, before we dive into the deeper significance of these comic book tie-ins, let's go ahead and look at the overarching story of BrightBurn. BrightBurn starts off with the character of Tori and Kyle Breyer, who are trying to have a kid, and they're unable to conceive, and that's when a spaceship comes from the sky, crash lands, and they get this baby boy, and they raise him to be a good kid. They do everything they can. He's kind of a nerd. He gets bullied at school, but that's because they raised him to be a smart kid, and he's pretty smart. Brandon, you can see as the movie unfolds in the very early scenes that Brandon is actually a smarty pants. Now, it isn't until his 12th birthday when his powers begin to emerge that we see the change in Brandon's character. And this happens when his ship costs him in the middle of the night and he sleepwalks towards his ship. And that seems to have awakened something within him, as you can hear him reciting a foreign alien language, almost as though he's speaking in tongues, and it's trying to tell him he needs to take something. But we soon find out that his messaging and his internal programming is from to take over the world. Now, as the movie progresses, Brandon gets more abilities such as heat vision and flight, super strength, super speed, and as he acquires his powers, instead of learning or being afraid to use them, he becomes more violent. And as puberty hits him, you can see that he has a crush in his school, and he goes to her house and kind of low-key stalks her. But this is what sets him off, because the girl then rejects him because she sees this stalker kid in her room, and she's like, whoa, like, he's a creep. And he's a pervert, and rightly so. So when she rejects him, he destroys her hand. And from that moment on, you could see his downturn, because afterwards he goes on and he kills her mother. Now, he ends up killing his uncle. And then when his father finds out what he's been doing, his father takes him out and tries to Old Yeller him, but the bullet doesn't penetrate. And he kills his father, goes after his mother, kills the town, and Brandon becomes a menace to society. As you can see towards the end of the movie, you see him starts off destroying the city, destroying the town, killing millions, and it escalates. And even as it escalates, you can see the tropes of the superhero genre being included in this. And that's what I want to jump into. Now, let's jump into what it means and what this movie does with superhero movies and mythologies. Now, this is clearly a bite of the Superman origin story, just in a different light. What happens if you were sent here to conquer the Earth as opposed to help it, like Jor-El sent Clark Kent to help and save the world? What if he's not meant to lead it but to destroy it? And that's where these things get interesting, because we see that in this kind of world, nothing can stop Brandon. Nothing can stop him from doing what he wants to do, because he is ultimately Superman, and without kryptonite, nothing can stop him. But in typical comic book fashion, we see that his weakness also comes with him. Just like kryptonite comes to Earth with Clark Kent, you see that Brandon's weakness comes with him, and that is his ship. His ship is the only substance or the only metal that's able to harm him, as we saw in the beginning of the movie. And towards the end, we see that his mom tried to stab him with a shard of the ship. However, she was unsuccessful. Now, nobody else knows about this weakness but his mom. And when you juxtapose that to Superman's weakness, which is kryptonite, something extremely rare and almost everyone knows about, that's why he's always struggling to fight villains. In this universe, no one knows Brandon can be hurt. So therefore, there's nothing to stop Brandon from enacting total chaos. And as you see throughout the movie, he's drawing a symbol, and that symbol is two bees, articulately or well drawn, and this probably stands for Brandon Breyer as well as BrightBurn, because that becomes his alias, because he is from the small town of BrightBurn, Kansas. It's almost similar to how in Man of Steel, when Superman tells Lois that the S on his chest means hope. In this movie, The symbol means despair and the opposite of hope, because when you see that symbol, you know Brandon has struck. Or if you see that symbol coming, you know Brandon's coming. And that is something you don't want to be a part of. And what I really like about this movie is it takes what the DC Cinematic Universe was trying to do and kind of does it better. Because in this movie, we always look at this because we always look at the DC Cinematic Universe as a darker take on superheroes and the superhero mythology. You have Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Justice League to a certain extent. It's darker reimaginings of these characters, but it fully doesn't go dark. It's kind of like, I'm kind of dark and edgy, but I'm not fully dark. BrightBurn is a dark reimagining of the superhero genre. This is Dark Superman, and as you saw towards the end of the movie, you see that there is a whole Justice League or Injustice League or Legion of Doom or whatever you want to call them, because at the end of the movie, Michael Rooker plays an Alex Jones spoof conspiracy theorist who's piecing together various different superhero sightings in this cinematic universe. I should say superhero, I should more say supervillain sightings. You have the half-man, half-fish Aquaman parody. You have Witch Woman, which is obviously something to do with Wonder Woman. And those are the three DC standalone movies. You had Man of Steel, Aquaman, and Wonder Woman. Those are the only DC. Well, Shazam, but that came after the whole dark reimagining thing. So you have those. And then you see his screen pops up with more characters. You see an evil Flash, an evil Batman. You see those characters showing up. And this is a dark cinematic universe at its finest or at its core, and it can be developed into something more. But overall, the movie is a more realistic take on what would happen if a hero came. We would be extremely blessed and favored if an alien came from space and they were benevolent and they became Superman who sacrificed everything for us. Usually what would happen is the case of Brandon. Teenage hormones come in, he's angry, he's frustrated, he takes it off and no one can stop him. A teenager with that type of power is truly a scary thing. And this is Clark Kent gone wrong. This is obviously one of the most worst case scenarios you can think of. And I like the fact that this movie shows that it's not nature versus nurture. For example, Clark Kent is nurture because his parents taught him better and loved him, therefore he grew up to be this guy. But in this movie, nurture is overridden by nature because Brandon's parents were loving and caring for him. However, his innate nature and his innate program to control the world doesn't matter how good and how loving and how nice his parents are or everyone around him was. He's never going to fully embrace what we're trying to do to him or trying to help him or love him. His programming is to take over the world, and even though his mom loved him, did everything she possibly could to show him that, his innate nature and wanting to conquer the world overrid all that. And now we have a BrightBurn potential dark cinematic universe being done by Sony to kind of rival Marvel and DC. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's my thought. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like the video, definitely hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you guys have not already. And until next time, binge on.